We begin the news at this hour in West Africa, where President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday departed Abuja for Paris, France, on a private visit. Special advisor to the president on media, Ajurin Galale, made this known in a statement, saying the president will return to the country in the first week of February 2024. On Tuesday night, Tinubu held a bilateral meeting with the American Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, at the presidential villa. On June 20, 2023, 3 weeks after assuming office, the Nigerian leader opened his foreign schedule in the city he last visited as president-elect, Paris, the French capital. Let's now tell you that the Nigerian government has sought the support of the United States on its membership in the G20 and a seat in the United Nations Security Council. President Bola Tinubu made the request on Tuesday at a bilateral meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken at a presidential villa. Addressing a joint press briefing after the bilateral discussions, Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs Yusuf Tuggar said the discussions bordered on agriculture, food security, pharmaceuticals, security, and artificial intelligence. Tuggar argued that Nigeria, being Africa's largest economy, deserves to represent the African voice on the UN Security Council, as 60% of resolutions passed by the UNSC are Africa-related. Blinken has since arrived in Lagos for the continuation of the tour.
It is also important to note that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu brought up the issue of Nigeria's membership and participation in the G20, as well as the United Nations Security Council.
For permanent representation for African voices in the UN Security Council, in other international organizations that need to reflect the realities of today, not just the day that they were created many, many years ago. I think it's no secret that there remains some long-term challenges that need to be overcome to really unlock the full potential. Tackling corruption, making it easier for foreign companies to repatriate capital, these will all pull in a transformative direction and pull in transformative direction, investment. I know that President Tinubu is focused on these challenges, and we also welcome his very bold economic reforms to unify the currency and fuel subsidies.
Justice Inyang Eko of the Federal High Court in Abuja has granted bail to the immediate past governor of Anambra State, Willie Obiano. He ordered that the former governor in the southeastern Nigerian state should be restricted to the court jurisdiction. He ordered the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to deposit the defendant's travel documents with the court registrar. Eko then ordered the registrar to notify the Nigerian Immigration Service of the developments. The prosecution counsel, Silvanus Tahir, had prayed the court to remand the former governor. He subsequently adjourned the case till March 4, 5, 6, and 7 for continuation of trial. Elsewhere, angry youth in Mangu local government area of Plateau State, north-central Nigeria, have defied the curfew placed by the state government to continue to perpetrate crime in the area. Gunshots are still being heard from different quarters, while houses, hospitals, churches, mosques, and other property are still being burned. There are rumors of different casualty figures with many injured people, but there hasn't been any officially confirmed figure. News Central's Chizobanyowe, who is on the ground, reports that heavy security personnel are on the different spots to ensure a de-escalation of the attacks. Details of this will be brought to you in our subsequent bulletins. But in the meantime, let's join News Central's Chizobanyowe, who is on standby to give us updates on this development. Chizoba, thank you so much for joining us at this time. Hello, Chizoba, if you can hear me, I'd like you to confirm that you can hear me.
It's my pleasure. Good afternoon. I can hear you.
Okay, good. So can you please give us an update on the incidents set to be happening in Mangu local government area in Plateau State as of now? Hello, Chizoba, can you hear me?
It's such an, however, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. So I was saying it's an unfortunate and sad incident here in Mangu, just about 3-4 weeks after the Christmas Eve attacks in the same area and some other areas. So about here on the ground, a curfew was placed yesterday by the state governor, Caleb Mutfwang, to make sure that security operates stay on top of the city to make sure it doesn't escalate. But unfortunately, in Mangu, we observed that people were still moving around. Houses were still being touched. In fact, heavy flames, smokes were still being seen in some areas, you know. And wonder how it is happening indoors, going by what the curfew said. And so the issue is being burnt, and some of them are still in flames. Of
Well, Chizoba, if you can hear me, before I let you go, I hope the network will be able to grant us this audience. Can you help us understand what the real reason for the escalation of violence?
Groups and all that.
Okay, we might have to allow Chizoba to go right now, probably reconnect with her when we have better reception from her end. But in the meantime, let's tell you that the Indian government has pledged to invest about $30 billion in Nigeria as part of efforts to deepen trade relations between both countries. India's foreign minister, while speaking during an India-Nigeria Business Council meeting in the nation's capital, Abuja, said India is committed to investing more in the country to improve trade between both nations, which now stands at about $13 to $15 billion. Marvelous Obomanu tells us more.
India is the fourth largest economy in the world and is projected to be the fastest growing emerging market with a gross domestic product of $3.4 trillion, driven primarily by its service, industrial and agricultural sectors. Some economists believe India will be the third largest economy in the world by 2030. With an export of about $766 billion in 2023, India is regarded as a global emerging economic power. Within the last few years, the balance of trade between India and Nigeria has significantly improved and is now manifest with several Indian-run businesses visibly seen in the country. With $13 to $15 billion worth of trade annually, and a commitment to invest about $13 billion in Nigeria, India has shown a willingness to deepen its trade relations with Nigeria, and it is time for a serious conversation on how Nigerian businesses can invest in this opportunity.
India's exports in the year that has just been completed was $766 billion. And I'd surely like, and I'm sure you would surely like, a larger part of that share to come to Nigeria.
For the balance of trade 2022 between India and Nigeria was $14.95 billion, 2022. This is an improvement from what we saw in 2021 at 8.81 and the year before at $11.8 billion. It's a significant improvement in our trade relationships.
This gathering comprises of active players in Nigeria and Indian business communities, seeking to leverage on existing economic relations, including trade, investment, and other sectors of the economy.
The issue that has been happening, the investors coming in, is the confidence. But now that the president and this administration is now removing those bottlenecks and they are creating investor confidence.
It's also very important to note that the NACIMA has signed an MOU with the NIBC to further deepen trade and investment opportunities between the two. So by and large, what we should be expecting is an increase of, we'll say an increase in trading, an increase in investment opportunities.
If we are to give this relationship more weight and substance and practicality. We should get beyond the world of protocol and diplomacy, not look at it in a very narrow sense, but really to get down to business and look at different parts of our economy and of our government and of our policy making and see where is it that we can build.
The government must begin to look at bottlenecks that hamstrings investment in Nigeria and create right policies that will attract foreign investment. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomman.
As Nigeria joins the rest of the global community to commemorate the International Day of Education, Executive Secretary, National Human Rights Commission, Tony Ojukwu, has tasked stakeholders on the need to push for quality, equitable and inclusive education for all. International Day of Education is commemorated every January 24, and the theme for this year's celebration is Learning for Lasting Peace. Ojukwu said education is the key that facilitates the achievement of other sustainable development goals. He added that education helps to reduce inequalities and empowers people to live more healthy and sustainable lives, noting that education is also crucial for fostering tolerance between people as it contributes to peaceful societies. Joining me on the news to discuss more on the importance of the day is the Special Assistant to Delta State Governor on Student Affairs, Obaro Egagifo. Thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, some say the right to education is one of the most violated rights in the country. How true is this postulation? Obaro, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course. I just asked a question. I said some people have said that the right to education is one of the most violated rights in Nigeria. And I'm asking you, how true do you think this postulation is?
Well, okay, thank you. The postulation may not be totally wrong in the context of the country we live in. You know, I would say the right to education is one of the abused rights that we have in this country. Possibly so, because you have had the trajectory and the stories that we have had over the years, where education have not been seen at the national level to be something that that is fundamental as a right, you know. So we can say that yes, to some extent, it is a right that has been abused, and we can also say that in other climes, we can also say that.
Hello, Obaro. Okay, well, I guess we just had internet issues with. Okay, we might need to revisit this particular issue, talking about the International Day of Education, and have Obaro Egagifo talk to us more about that during the course of the news anyway. But in the meantime, despite Nigeria being among the top 5 countries in sub-Saharan Africa with the cheapest cost of internet data, citizens say they are unsure if they actually get value for money spent, as they cannot explain the rate of data depletion when being used. Idon Joseph tells us more in this report.
Internet connectivity has become an integral part of the life of many Nigerians, as it provides access to the world, making information readily available. According to a report by a United Kingdom-based online daily, Nigeria was ranked 31 out of 237 countries globally and second in Africa with the lowest cost of data. This, however, places Nigeria among countries where mobile data is affordable, despite complaints by citizens that they still do not get value for the money spent.
Before you can get to, maybe you can get a data of 1.5, maybe at the rate of 9 or 7 point something gig. But right now it's 2,000. And even the 2,000, you discover that within 3 days, you have exhausted your data without even checking YouTube or whatever.
In terms of using that same data you buy, is like a blind man business. Because when you buy data, you can't use it. The network will tell you is 1 week. And when you get that data for 1 week, hoping that you are doing these things for 1 week, but it will use it like 3 days, 2 days, depending on what you do.
If they are telling us it's 1 month, let it be 1 month. Let us make use of that 1 month. If it is 1 week, they should allow us to make use of that 1 week. You know that you will buy a 1 month data, and after 1 week, you see that you have exhausted your data without even using to do what you want.
Some subscribers also accuse telecom providers of extortion and unsolicited charges.
And maybe I was thinking, I said, when did I subscribe this thing? And the worst is that before you know, I see deduction without my knowledge. Then I will start asking, when did I subscribe for this thing? And at the end of the day, I may not even use that particular plan they are putting me on. Are you getting me? So by the time that money is gone, who do I complain to? No, nobody.
I have a money that's still pending in the bank now. The bank will say that the MTNs have not do anything about it. And when you call the MTN says go to the bank. And that's why I said that the whole system is not working. Nigeria is not working. No single system is working in Nigeria. No single system that is working. That's why everybody is doing the way they like.
While it is not clear whether the rising cost of operations, coupled with a tough business environment, make up operational costs that telecom operators now transfer to customers, citizens are calling for stricter monitoring of operators to stop them from fleecing the public. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Well, earlier on, we talked about the International Day for Education, a day being observed by the global community, and this year's theme is Learning for Lasting Peace. A while ago, we were talking to the Special Assistant to Delta State Governor on Student Affairs, Obaro Egagifo, and is back online to shed more light on this. Thank you so much for staying with us regardless of the situation. So tell me, earlier on, we were talking about the right to education, but at this time, let's look at the challenges. What are the challenges to ensuring that quality education is accessible to all, and how can those challenges be dealt with?
Okay, thank you very much for having me once again. The challenges are synonymous with our country, Nigeria. Vis-a-vis, you talk about the challenge of access. You talk about the challenge that has to do with the quality of our education, the quality of learning that takes place in our educational system. Then you can also talk about the nature of our environment. How secure is our school in terms of, in terms of how safe our students and pupils are in their various schools. You agree with me that we have had a tale of some stories where students are kidnapped from their school during learning hours and during school hours and all that. So these are some of the challenges that bedevil us as a nation, talking about having rights to quality education. But in meantime, one could also add that, our government is doing a whole lot to make sure that we have access to education. But this access that we talk about, we'll be looking at it in a relative terms, in terms of perhaps the quality and the value that we get from the kind of education that we have in this country as a people. But moving forward, I want to encourage that one of the ways to mark the International Day of Education, if you see the theme, the theme talk about learning for lasting peace. The only thing that guarantees peace in a society is when you have education. And having that education, it has to be a quality education that can make you stand out as an individual, education that can make you defend what your rights are, education that can also teach you what to do at a particular time and not what not to do, education to teach you how to uphold the values of your country and your state. That's the kind of education that we are talking about, and that is the education that can give a lasting peace. So moving forward, we want to encourage, or we want to say that as a people, we have to prioritize this learning for it to be impactful, for our society to be a peaceful place. Because in the real sense of it, if you want a peaceful environment, you just have to talk about quality education. Okay. You just have to talk about how people can be educated in terms of their
Obaro Ogagifo, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us within the short time that we're able to have you. We appreciate that. Let's move on and look at health matters now, as the rate of infertility continues to grow among young people, couples in Nigeria. Reproductive endocrinologists have called for government intervention to enable affordable treatment and solutions for affected couples. Lifestyle factors and diet have been attributed to the sudden rise of infertility among young couples, usually at the age of 35. Adesha Odushoga reports.
About 5 to 8% of couples worldwide are affected by infertility, and the prevalence of this is higher in sub-Saharan Africa, where 10 to 30% of couples in Nigeria are affected. This has been attributed to varying reproductive challenges such as abnormalities of the ovaries, uterus, and fallopian tubes in females, and the problem of ejection of semen, absence or low levels of sperm, or abnormal shape and movement of sperm in males.
With sexually transmitted diseases and pelvic inflammatory diseases, some of these bacteria or causative agents can cause what we call tubal factor infertility. Okay, some of them attach to some of these walls and make it difficult for the egg to transport or to be transferred to the point of fertilization. So we have had an increased incidence, of course. Then we have unsafe abortion. That's a thing of worry because in Nigeria, I stand to be corrected, abortion is illegal. Yeah, but countries and other nations have started looking at it from a different point of view, because if we can control illegal or illicit abortion, if we can control unintended pregnancy with the uptake of family planning, we are going to significantly reduce maternal and infant mortality.
One of the breakthroughs in science to tackle the rise in infertility among couples is artificial reproductive technology, such as IVF, which involves handling of eggs and embryos for women. But this is yet to be widely accepted as a result of cultural and religious beliefs.
A surrogate is a reservoir, yeah? There are testing, there are questions, there are physical examinations that go on before this process is even started, all right? So the egg is retrieved from the couple intending to have the baby, then combined with the sperm of the man, yeah, then put into the surrogate, or it should just be an artificial insemination of the sperm alone. So there are different types of surrogacy. We have the ones where the woman just carries the baby, she doesn't have any genomic or genetic makeup to share. Why some, they say, oh, I want you, I have my prerequisites, yeah, for who my surrogate carrier should be. It must be tall, dark, fair, all those physical appearances come into play. So for cases like that, an artificial insemination is just done. So there's a likelihood that genetic material will be shared.
While in vitro fertilization, otherwise known as IVF, has been identified as one of the several techniques available to help people with fertility problems have a baby, the cost of this process has made it inaccessible and discouraging for most couples in Nigeria. This made it necessary to call for government-owned IVF centers to crash prices and make it more affordable for those desperately in need of these. In Lagos for News Central, Adesha Odushoga.
The mood across the Nigerian broadcasting sector is celebratory following a recent ruling by the Federal High Court of Abuja that nullified the powers of Nigeria's broadcasting regulator, the National Broadcasting Commission to impose fines on broadcast stations for alleged breaches of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code. This came after the Commission fined a television station and 3 pay TV platforms 5 million naira each in 2022 for supposedly undermining Nigeria's national security by airing documentaries on banditry within Nigeria. This ruling was widely seen as a victory for freedom of expression and an independent press across the broadcast media landscape in Nigeria. Niyomoni has more.
The judgment in the suit instituted by Media Rights Agenda MRA against the National Broadcasting Commission NBC of Nigeria calls into question broadcast code that provide the NBC overly broad authority to sanction media organizations for content as potentially infringing on press freedom.
The fact that it's an administrative body exercising judicial powers was a problem. The procedure it was using without giving broadcasters an opportunity to defend themselves before imposing fines violates our constitution, which is the right to fair hearing. Anybody who is accused of an offense must be given an opportunity under the constitution to defend themselves before any punishment is imposed.
Moving forward, media professionals indicate Nigeria needs a regulatory framework that promotes press freedom while reasonable balancing ethical and legal considerations.
The first thing that NBC will try to do is to stand alone, be more independent, take it out of the Ministry of Information and let it be an agency or on its own. And then we need to look at how to amend the bill to reflect current times.
It was not a law made to operate in a democratic environment. Now that we're in a democratic environment and the courts have laid out these guidance, I think the proper thing would be for NBC to bring together media stakeholders and fashion out a regulatory approach.
In the long run, diversifying the media ownership beyond a small number of conglomerates could strengthen the industry by bolstering press freedom.
We cannot pretend that there is no ownership, interference, or influence in these media houses. Well, this is why you have those that are owned by non-politicians as well as those that are owned by politicians. And to create a balance, when you hear from the media that are owned by government or the politicians, there's also the need to hear the voice of the people from stations that are not owned by politicians or the government.
All efforts to get reaction from the NBC regarding the reported court appeal were unsuccessful, as the recent court ruling presents an opportunity for Nigeria to re-examine its media laws and regulatory practices to develop a model that achieves a better equilibrium between press freedom and public interest. While the court verdict is a welcome development towards holding government at all levels accountable, what happens when ethics and professionalism are thrown overboard by broadcasters and broadcast stations? In Lagos for News Central, Ni Omoni.
A break will do here on the news. When we return, we'll bring you more stories. Don't go away. Bringing you other stories now, a local gold mining group leader and a local official say more than 70 people were killed after a tunnel collapsed at a Malian gold mine site last week. An official for gold miners in the southwestern town of Kangaba says there were over 200 gold miners in the field, adding that the search is over now. Omar Sidibe said 73 bodies have now been recovered after the incident on Friday. Mali's Ministry of Mines in a statement announced the death of several miners but did not give precise figures. The government offered its deepest condolences to the grieving families and to the Malian people. It also called on communities living near mining sites and gold miners to scrupulously respect safety requirements and to work only within the parameters dedicated to gold panning. In East Africa, we tell you that thousands of people protested in Tanzania on Wednesday against proposed changes to electoral laws in the largest public demonstration since the government lifted a ban on opposition political rallies a year ago. Tanzania's main opposition party, Chadema, organized the rally in the main city of Dar es Salaam as lawmakers prepare to debate next month a raft of contentious electoral reforms proposed by government. Tanzania is scheduled to hold its first presidential election in 2025 since the death of John Magufuli in 2021, which led to his deputy, Samia Suluhu Hassan, becoming president. Chadema leader Freeman Mbowe said the proposals did not address concerns over the last election in 2020, which Magufuli won in a landslide despite opposition claims of fraud. Elsewhere, the Comoros Supreme Court on Wednesday confirmed the re-election of President Azali Assoumani, whose victory in a disputed vote last week was followed by deadly protests. Assoumani won with 57.2% of the vote. Rafiq Mohammed, president of the court's Constitutional and Electoral Section, told a press conference, adding that there are grounds to declare him elected in the first round. In Central Africa, 11 civilians have been killed by militiamen in the west of the Democratic Republic of Congo in a region beset by communal conflict. The militiamen killed 11 people, including 3 women, during the night in the village of Adiaka in Kwamut territory. Considered members of the Yaka community, the Mobondo are accused of playing an active part in the violence, which has left hundreds dead. Local Member of Parliament Guy Musomo said the militiamen armed with machetes and rifles went to massacre the population of Adiaka when they saw that the soldiers had left for an operation in another area, which resulted in Tuesday's violence. Let's also tell you that the M23 rebel group has appointed its own administration in areas under its control in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, sparking concerns that it plans to form a separate state. M23 political leader Bertrand Bisimwa, in a statement, said the group had appointed an administration in North Kivu's Rushuru territory. He added that leaders for the towns of Kiwanja, Rubare, and Munagana towns, also in North Kivu, had been appointed as well. The rebels control a big chunk of Rushuru and Masisi, 2 of the 5 territories that constitute North Kivu province and are about 35 kilometers west of the provincial capital, Goma. In Southern Africa, Namibia's ruling SWAPO party says President Hage Geingob is in good spirits and is receiving good medical attention for his cancer treatment. Last week, the presidency said Geingob would start treatment for cancer after routine medical checkups, and a follow-up biopsy led to the detection of cancerous cells. It did not give more details on his diagnosis, but said it would continue to carry out its duties. SWAPO deputy leader Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah, in a statement, said the president would continue to conduct the business of the party and government while giving the necessary priority to his medical treatment. We now go on another short break. When we return, we'll bring you the rest of the stories. Don't go away. From other continents, we tell you that Republican presidential hopeful Nikki Haley has vowed to press on with her campaign in the wake of a second consecutive loss to Donald Trump. Haley toured much of New Hampshire ahead of Tuesday's primary, courting both independent and moderate Republican voters, but she was unable to catch Trump, who had a comfortable 11-point lead with most ballots counted. He now appears set to clinch the Republican nomination. Last week, the former president won a landslide in Iowa's caucuses, with Haley placing third behind Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Days later, Haley became the only rival to Trump after DeSantis quit the race. In the meantime, the United States says its forces have carried out strikes in Iraq on 3 facilities used by Iran-backed militia. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the proportionate strikes targeted Kataib, Hezbollah militia group, and other Iran-affiliated groups. He said the precision strikes were in direct response to attacks against U.S. and coalition allies in Iraq and Syria. A senior Iraqi official said they were a flagrant violation of Iraq's sovereignty. Iraq's National Security Advisor Qasim al-Araji added that the U.S. strikes did not help bring calm. Writing on X, formerly called Twitter, he said the U.S. should pile on pressure for a halt to the Israeli offensive in Gaza rather than targeting and bombing the bases of an Iraqi national body. We also tell you that 6 people were killed and over a dozen injured in Mongolia's capital on Wednesday after a truck carrying gas collided with a car, causing a huge explosion that sent flames soaring into the night sky. The Mongolian National Emergency Management Agency said the incident took place in the early hours of Wednesday in Ulaanbaatar's eastern Banyazurk district and involved a truck carrying 60 tons of liquefied natural gas. Preliminary reports from the emergency agency says 3 people died in the fire and 3 firefighters were also killed. 14 people were injured, with 10 taken for treatment for burns, while 1 child was being treated for poisoning and 3 other infants were being cared for. Thailand's constitutional
Одоо энэ том тэргүүдийг ер нь газтай ч газгүй ч том тэргүүдийг ер нь дандаа хотын захаар явуулж явах хэрэгтэй байхгүй. Тэгээ ер нь энэ бас нэг төлөвлөлтөө бас нэг дахин бодж үзээд том тэргүүдийг ер нь дандаа л хотын захаар л явуулж идэг боломоор байна.
Well, we now tell you that Thailand's Constitutional Court on Wednesday cleared thwarted Prime Ministerial candidate Peter Limjaroenrat of violating election law in a case that could have seen him banned from politics, reinstating him as a lawmaker. The 43-year-old led the Progressive Move Forward party to win the most votes in last year's general election, but was blocked from becoming prime minister after he was suspended as a lawmaker in July. His party was excluded from the governing coalition after the powerful establishment was spooked by the MFP's calls to reform the kingdom's strict royal insult laws, the military and business monopolies.
Soon do you want to go back to Parliament? As soon as possible with this process. So we are asking the Parliament when I'm allowed to be back in. So there's a discrepancy between 2 organizations, which is the Constitutional Court and the Parliament. And whenever I'm allowed in, I'll be there. Does this verdict? I feel all right. I feel regular, like any other working day. In my mind right now is about the next steps of the kind of work that needs to be done, specifically the strategic roadmap of the party. I think it's unrelated, but I'm still confident. Just to be clear that it's unrelated, but I'm confident because of the facts of the legal basis and my articulation last December.
Talking business now, Nigeria is taking steps to bridge the gap between the official and unofficial rates of its currency, the Naira, by reintroducing public visibility to foreign exchange trading. The country's financial crimes watchdog has authorized the Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria to publicly display the buying and selling rates of the Naira against the dollar online. This move aims to boost market competitiveness, facilitate price discovery, and counter the influence of the parallel markets. It signifies a shift from the previous central bank leadership's measures to control Bureau de Change operators and limit the visibility of the unofficial markets. Despite these efforts, the Naira remains under pressure, facing challenges such as inadequate liquidity in the official market and a widening spread between the official and unofficial rates. Mozambique has granted an extended contract to DP World Limited, GSE-listed Grindrod Limited and other operators of its largest port, paving the way for a $2 billion, that's approximately 38 billion rand expansion project that will further divert shipments from the ailing trade infrastructure of neighboring South Africa. The consortium, which also features Mozambique's state-owned railway operator, has secured a 25-year extension to manage the port in the capital city of Maputo, with the agreement set to run until 2058. The Council of Ministers greenlit the arrangement on Tuesday, with investments totaling nearly $1.1 billion slated for the year 2033, when the original concession was due to expire. The port's capacity is projected to swell to 54 million tons annually by the year 2058, up from 37 million tons this year, as outlined in the extended concession agreement, which encompasses the expansion of a coal terminal in Matola adjacent to Maputo to 18 million tons per year from 7.5 million tons. We will bring you sports stories, but that will be after this break. In sports, Algeria football fans are still reeling in shock following the exit of the 2019 champions, Algeria.
It has to be a psychological problem. It has to be a mentality problem because the players are there, the talent are there. But ultimately, what I would say is when you win a tournament with a manager and most of the same set of players, is the hunger to go and win it again still there and go again? Because you know in the back of your head you've already done it. And I think that's what's cost us in the past two tournaments. It's good to see them getting an opportunity. Or do we go down the foreign route once again? And there is only one man on the lips of the fans, and that is Mr. Hervé Renard, who has managed at club level in Algeria before, who has won AFCON with multiple nations. Is it time for Renard to win AFCON with a North African team? I think this could be the time for Renard.
And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. Former Anambra State Governor Willie Obiano has pleaded not guilty as anti-corruption agency EFCC docks him for alleged 4 billion naira fraud. Supreme Court in the Comoros has affirmed President Assoumani's re-election. And finally, we told you that concerns in the DR Congo as M23 rebels form administrations in territories under their control. Do send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number and email on your screen. You can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Onobanjo.